This is Toledo Symphony Lab, a behind-the-scenes look at the world of classical music from WGTE Public Media and your Toledo Symphony. I'm Brad Cresswell. I'm joined in the studio today by the Toledo Symphony's Marketing Director, Vanessa Gardner. We also have a very special guest joining us by phone this morning, and I actually have a little bit of a fanfare here. That is Michael Chertock, wonderful pianist who is soloing with the Toledo Symphony this weekend. Welcome, Michael.
Thank you. I'm very honored to be here on your show.
Well, we're honored to have you with us. I have long admired your career, your playing. I've got some of your albums here in the music library, and I have to say that every year I dig out some of those cinematic classics and play them for our appreciative audience.
Thank you. I appreciate that immensely, and nothing knocks me out more than to be listening to a radio station and to hear one of those tunes from my wild youth.
Yeah, from your wild youth. I want to talk more about your wild youth in just a minute, but we should mention this concert is happening this weekend. It's November 6th and 7th. It's an all-American program, music of Aaron Copland. We'll hear his Appalachian Spring, and George Walker's Lyric for Strings, but also George Gershwin's Rhapsody in Blue, and that features you, Michael. I assume this is a piece that you've played for a long time. I mean, you've wrapped your fingers around a little Gershwin in your time, haven't you?
Yes, and it's such a well-known piece, but it's such a kind of miracle of construction that it always seems fresh, and it's different with every orchestra and with every conductor. So I'm looking forward to performing it with Toledo Symphony in Toledo.
Yeah. Have you been here before? Have you performed here before?
Well, this is a funny thing, Brad. I've played as soloist twice with the Toledo Symphony, once in the Rachmaninoff Third Piano Concerto at Ohio Northern University, and once in the I Got Rhythm Variations, where we took it, I want to say, was it Van Wert, Ohio? It was somewhere far from Toledo, maybe even closer to Dayton. And I feel like this is like a signal honor. I get to play the Toledo Symphony in Toledo. Maybe I have been found to be safe enough to be brought within the city limits. So.
Yeah, you're playing the home game, as it were. Well, we should say also that you're based in Cincinnati, so this is where all Ohio references come from. You're teaching down there at the Conservatory of Music, which is a very prestigious school, and you attended there as well, right?
I did quite some time ago, and we have, it's really quite a world-famous conservatory, and we have about 90 piano majors from many, many different countries and continents, and we're so proud of what all of them are doing. And during this COVID shutdown, the good folks of Cincinnati loaned keyboards and pianos to the students who were essentially trapped for months in their apartments, and they continue to practice very, very hard.
Yeah, well, that's good. They have to practice because, you're keeping an eye on them, right? You've got that whip back there, and
How many of them are in your studio?
I have 14 in my studio, and in addition to teaching the individuals, I also teach a graduate course on piano literature and chair the department. And they come from all over. I've got a doctoral student from Italy, a student in the master's program who went to Beijing Central Conservatory, and I've got some good homegrown Americans in my studio, particularly in the undergraduate area.
I have to confess, piano was my least favorite subject at the Boston Conservatory.
Yeah, but you were a French hornist, right?
Yes.
Yeah.
Oh, that's a very, very difficult instrument.
Yeah.
Well, if you ask me, I can maybe, if I concentrate really hard, play a C major scale on the piano with both hands.
Okay.
Maybe.
My goodness.
Yeah, I did pass my piano proficiency, and that was back in the Stone Age. And I'll tell you what, I still have the little piece of paper that has my name along with a few other names on it that I've completely forgotten, but the list of people who passed their piano proficiency. Vanessa and I both studied music in school, so...
I passed.
Yeah.
But I didn't enjoy it.
Yeah. Well,
the piano
okay.
proficiency exams are a little bit like the swimming exams they used to give to people back in colleges in my father's day. I have a feeling a lot of the instructors overlooked a lot of...
I can
Yeah.
definitely swim better than I play piano.
So what you're saying is that we were just awful pianists, and that's okay.
Maybe you were wonderful pianists and they were afraid of the competition. I don't know. Maybe they were holding you guys back.
Yeah.
And I had some resentment because the musical theater majors only had to take 1 year of piano and we had to take 2. And I felt like they needed it more than we did.
Well, you know, the way of the world as it goes. Let's talk a little bit more about you, Michael. I hope you don't mind. You mentioned the Rachmaninoff Third Piano Concerto, which is a great big huge bear of a concerto, but you played that when you were a teenager, right? That was your debut piece in public?
Yes. Well, it was my first time performing with a really major conductor. Andrew Litton is his name, and he went on. At the time, he was the assistant conductor of the National Symphony, or actually the Exxon Arts conductor, if you remember that designation, back in the, I think, 80s and 90s. And then he went on to become music director of the Dallas Symphony. This was with the Arlington Symphony of, Arlington Cemetery fame. And it was a terrific orchestra around Washington. And at the age of 17, it's a lot of notes for a 17-year-old. I'm kind of glad there isn't an extant recording of that back there. I'm not sure. I'm not sure I want that to see the light of day.
Well, now, speaking from the standpoint of somebody who teaches others the instrument, I mean, would you assign your 17-year-old student the Rock 3, or is that reserved for, the cream of the crop, as it were?
Well, it's a funny thing. A lot of times with students, there's a healthy struggle between teacher and student about what I think they should play and what they want to play. And with some personalities, if you know they're going to practice immensely harder if they're doing something they're very passionate about, it's a little like what Daniel Barenboim said about the Hammer Clavier Sonata. It doesn't get easier by not playing it.
Yeah.
And my teacher has said to me, there are certain pieces, if you want to play them when you're in your 30s, 40s, 50s, 60s, and beyond, it might be better to learn them before you're 25 or so. In other words, get them so deep in the cellar that no matter what's going on in your life, you'll be able to draw into it. And I should like to think I play it better now than I did back then. But the 17-year-old wanted to do it so badly, I think my teacher at the time said, fine, I give up.
Yeah, well, obviously you could play the notes, that's for sure. We're talking with Michael Chertock, who is a pianist with the Toledo Symphony Orchestra. The concerts are this weekend, November 6th and 7th. Rhapsody in Blue, George Gershwin, alongside music of Aaron Copland, his ballet Appalachian Spring. Also George Walker's Lyric for Strings, which is just a beautiful, remarkable work. And I do want to talk about that a little bit later in the program. We're waiting right now. We got Zach Vassar, who's joined us here in the studio. Hi, Zach.
Hello, Brad.
Zach, have you met Michael? Michael, Zach, Michael.
Michael,
Hi, Zach.
It's good to meet you. I know your reputation, which is glistening, and I look forward to your Rhapsody.
Thank you very much. I'm looking forward to coming up to Toledo, up I-75.
Yeah.
Your Rhapsody in our city.
We already talked about this. He's, playing the home game for the first time, actually making it in Toledo as opposed to playing with the Toledo Symphony in other cities.
I think, you were first introduced, I think, in Rhapsody out of town, right?
Actually, the very first time, it may be 10 years ago, we were talking about this a little bit before, was with the Rachmaninoff Third Concerto with Chelsea Tipton conducting.
Oh, sure.
I think he's one of your former assistants or associates.
Right. Yeah.
And it was at Ohio Northern University.
That's great.
Which is not too far from Toledo. And that was great, great fun. Although we had the rehearsal in the peristyle, and that was kind of amazing. I had not been inside the theater before, and it's pretty eye-popping.
It is. And I remember seeing you, Michael, in I think it was the Cincinnati's return to the stage in the Mahler chamber music. Yeah.
Oh yes. Oh my goodness, that was fun is not the right word for it. After those kind of strange and disorienting weeks of everybody being at home, and then to be able to come onto the stage and getting used to the masks, even though it's only several months ago, it seems like a year ago. And
time moves differently now, right?
Oh yes, it's what do they call it? COVID time.
Yeah.
Very interesting.
Or as one of our trustees refers to it, the Corona coaster.
I do have to say, Michael, that you stole Zach's heart by playing Mahler. He's a big Mahler fan. So.
You're a Mahler fellow?
I'm a Mahler fellow, but that piano quartet is a very special piece to me. I know he wrote it while very young, but for some reason it's always just grabbed my heart, and opening with that and your performance of it. It was really the first time I had seen musicians performing in masks, and it was interesting to consider at that point what was ahead for us. You think about all these things, but you don't know what it looks like, and so I'll think back to watching that live stream as a real flashpoint for this odyssey that we continue to endure.
I want to pivot a little bit here, Michael, because we got to know
you. Don't want to keep talking about Mahler?
No, we're gonna focus back on Michael and Gershwin and everything that he's doing this weekend with the Toledo Symphony. Now, Michael Chertock, we talked briefly about when you were 17 playing Rachmaninoff. Let's go back a little bit further and get to know you and your instrument a little bit better. I'm going to pull up a little music here, and I want you to sort of tell us how you first got hooked on the piano, how it came into your life. Let me pull this up. Okay, nice little background music for you. All right, this is the story of Michael and the piano. Your piano doesn't have a name, does it?
My piano downstairs at home, no, my metronome has a name, but not my piano.
Your metronome has a name.
Can we ask what it is? Is it a four-letter word?
No.
Mothership. It's shaped like an alien vessel, and it kind of roots us back to the foundations of time.
So the mothership is your metronome. Your piano remains unnamed. How did you get started on the piano? What interested you in that instrument?
Oh, that's such a good question. My father was an officer in the Navy, so we tended to move every year or every 2 years, and sometimes even less than that. And it's very hard to bring a piano with you. But we were plopped in Pennsylvania, in the middle of Pennsylvania, for eventually it ended up being 4 years. And I think my mother decided this would be a good time to purchase an instrument. And she bought an upright from a company called Steve's Keyboard Sounds, and I thought that was actually a major manufacturer of pianos. It turns out it was just the dealership, and decided all the kids and she would study the instrument. And I figured out quickly, this was quite late to get started, age of 9. That's way late compared to most of my students, but figured out if you're sitting and practicing, nobody asks you to do anything else or asks you to do chores or asks you why you're not doing your homework. And it was a pretty safe place to kind of hide out. Had some wonderful teachers there. And when we ended up moving to Guam, which was my father's next assignment, we brought the piano all the way there. It's amazing it made it there in one piece. And there was an incredible teacher there, actually 2 teachers. One was the admiral's wife, and her husband was reassigned, so she moved, and I ended up studying with a woman named Elizabeth de la Cruz from the Philippines, and she was quite a dazzling pianist, probably 4.5 feet tall, a real holy terror of a teacher, an amazing teacher, and she really kind of lit the fire. So when we moved back to the mainland, I was completely hooked, and we ended up next assigned to Virginia Beach, and there was a former student of Vladimir Horowitz who became my teacher, and then we moved near Washington during the high school years. Wonderful teacher, Thomas Schumacher, who ended up teaching at Eastman.
Yeah.
And if you can stand one more little story, there was a music festival called Eastern Music Festival in Greensboro, North Carolina. And it's funny because I teach at their rival, Brevard, now, but let's not get into that. And I met the wonderful pianist Frank Weinstock, who taught at the College Conservatory of Music. And at the time, I only understood that Cincinnati was the home of Pete Rose. And if you'd asked me about Toledo, I would not have said anything about MASH or Corporal Klinger. I would have said, isn't that the song referred to in that great Kenny Rogers song, You Picked a Fine Time to Leave Me, Lucille? And it just had kind of a beautiful sort of honky-tonk kind of feel to it. I don't know how else to describe it. When I actually saw that Toledo's this amazing port city and all these things, it wasn't like the song described it. So anyway, I came to Ohio, discovered its amazing things, and have really never left.
That's amazing. Give you a cheer for that.
Yeah. I'm just happy that you didn't reference the John Denver song. I mean, I'll take the Kenny Rogers any day.
Saturday Night in Toledo, yeah.
My understanding is, though, that one has a happy ending in that Toledo kind of forgave him, and he gave a live concert there and had one of the hugest crowds of all time. So Toledo must be
a very forgiving
very
city.
Beautiful, forgiving people. Yeah, that's what I would say.
Or with very persistent city managers.
So the thing to do then, of course, is to see if you can insult Toledo as much as you can before you do the concert this weekend. And then we'll get a big crowd of people coming in, to with forgiveness on their minds.
And tomatoes in their handbags.
Yeah, something like that.
Well, I was thinking the Kenny Rogers song, he meets this beautiful woman in the bar.
That's right.
The husband comes in, and then my understanding is he does the right thing at the end. So I see Toledo as a place that sets people back. Their moral compass reads louder there.
Their character is high here. Yes.
Yes, character. That's it.
That hotel, by the way, that the song is set in is no longer operational, but it does still sit across from the depot, the train depot downtown.
Wow.
Goodness.
Fun Toledo facts from Zach Fassler.
Can I do some math checking here, Michael? You said you started playing the piano at age 9, and I thought I heard Brad say earlier that you played Rachmaninoff at 17. Do I have that right?
Oh yeah,
that is correct.
And we're talking about the Rock 3, not like a piano prelude.
No, we're talking about we are talking about the Rachmaninoff Third Concerto. Again, I'm really kind of glad that there isn't a archival recording floating around there.
That's what you think. Because boy, Michael, we're going to play This Is Your Life.
That's right. Big surprise.
Yeah.
The funny thing is, another soloist on this young artist concert is Pansy Chang, who plays in the group Pink Martini.
Mm-hmm.
Oh, yeah.
And she taught for a while at Miami University in Oxford, Ohio, which is up the road from us. And I saw her for the first time in, it must have been 30 years, and expected immediately to pick up the conversation. I said, Pansy, remember me? She had no memory of this at all. So maybe the whole thing never happened. Maybe I invented it. No, it happened, and if a recording ever comes out, I will find it and burn it. But the orchestra played beautifully, and the conductor was amazing.
Yeah. Well, we look forward to your Gershwin this weekend. I want to ask you, Michael, I heard an interview with you where you talked about some of your odd jobs and some of the things that you've done peripheral to being a concert pianist and a teacher. And do I have this correct that you played in a rock band in a pizza joint, something like that?
How did you find out about this?
Yeah.
Yes.
So dirty secrets. This is your life, Michael Chertock.
Yes, it was. I'm trying to remember what the circumstance. Oh, yes. There was a fellow who was doing some recording engineering work for me. I had written a ballet, and he was doing all sort of favors and things, and recording this and editing that and everything. And he mentioned that he had a regular gig at a pizza joint for, I don't know, something like $50 and a free pizza on Friday nights. And the person who played for him, it was essentially him on guitar and singing and a keyboardist, would not be able to come, and his, I think, guitar was busted, so he desperately needed some kind of accompaniment, and he showed me the fake book, And I thought, well, goodness gracious, I can do, I've recorded with the Cincinnati Pops, I can do this. And I went with him, and we got heckled. It was really quite humiliating. And he was so used to being heckled, he knew how to throw it back. I remember the only song that went well, because I'd heard it a million times, was Bryan Adams' The Summer of '69. It has that did kind of accompaniment. And one of them said, well, that wasn't too awful. And then we did a few songs that he knew that I didn't know, and I think they were just hideous. So people started yelling stuff. Nobody threw anything. And I remember thinking, thank God in classical music, there's not really a lot of heckling. You're playing the well-tempered clavier. People don't throw things at you.
Because it's well-tempered. Okay.
Remember, you're coming to
if
Toledo
it was the
now.
ill-tempered clavier, it might be different.
Yeah, or the short-tempered clavier.
Short-tempered clavier.
Yeah. I think we need more heckling.
The only other heckling experience, there was a benefit concert I participated in at the Avalon, which is a famous rock club in Boston.
In Boston? What were you doing at the Avalon?
Well, it was, I don't even remember what it was a benefit for, but I was playing this strange experimental piece by Todd Mockover, who is an amazing composer and a professor at MIT, and it had all sort of wild effects. And the concert began with a comedian, and the comedian was being heckled. People were shouting all sort of things at him, and this is before I went on, and I think the piece was sort of so far from their normal experience that they just sort of watched and listened to it open mouth, and there was no heckling, but I don't think there was applause either. There was just sort of shock.
Do you remember?
They were like, bring back the comedian.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Do you remember what year that was?
That must have been, we premiered this piece with the Boston Pops in 2004.
Okay.
And
I think I vaguely remember this because I worked at MIT, not in 2004, but shortly thereafter, and did some work with Todd Mockover in the Media Lab. And I think some of my friends might have played that concert. Sounds familiar.
Yeah.
The group Guster was also on this concert.
Guster! Oh, when are we having Guster?
It's a small world here. Whoa. Okay, pull it up
Very
a little
excited
bit.
applause there.
Todd
Yeah.
Mockover is a genius, and kind of an eccentric genius, but amazing. And he looks like a genius too, because he has this wild head of curly hair.
That happens when you're at MIT for long enough. I looked like a genius for a very just brief
Your
period
hair
of
is
time.
straightened out a little bit since you've come here.
What were you doing at MIT?
I worked in the music department. I helped facilitate the co-curricular ensembles in the chamber music program.
They have an amazing music program at MIT.
Yes.
Did you help him with one of his students developed the Guitar Hero, and probably
Yes.
probably a very wealthy person.
Yes,
now.
Aaron Agozi.
Yeah.
Yes.
Oh my God.
Yeah, he's actually a clarinetist.
Wait, a clarinetist invented Guitar Hero?
Yeah, and one of
That seems wrong.
Think about how the keys work. That kind of makes sense.
Yeah.
one of my work study students worked on Todd's big opera that premiered in the 2007, 8.
Yeah.
Maybe a little
Yes,
later
and the
than
Powers.
Yes, that one. Yes, thank you.
Oh my golly, there's even talk. He started so many things. I mean, he's really changed music history. The fellow who developed I almost said Clarinet Hero. That
that was the first edition that didn't sell so well.
Yeah, Clarinet Hero. Everybody grab your clarinets. Here we go.
Yeah, you just get to play Rhapsody in Blue over and over and over again.
Yeah. That little
I figured
glissando.
somebody invented Contrabassoon Hero and is trying to sue him for infringement, but can't raise enough money to get away.
I want to play Triangle Hero, or Recorder Hero.
I could do Triangle Hero, probably.
Yeah.
We can probably get to Kazoo Hero over here. Yeah.
Yeah, something like that.
Kazoo, yeah.
Kazoo Hero.
Wow, that's amazing. I love that these little nuggets of information just keep popping up on this wonderful program.
Yeah.
Speaking of wonderful programs, I'm not sure if you spoke about this before I came in, but I think it's interesting that we're focusing on American music for this program. The ballet did a Gershwin celebration a couple weeks ago, and I think a lot of people wondered if this was the right time to be playing happy music.
Yeah.
And I think it was really well received and provided that kind of departure that people are looking for. I'd just love to get your thoughts, Michael, on a program of Copland, Gershwin, and Walker in this time.
Great question. One of the things I think a lot of orchestras have done, and a lot of people who have a bent for research, is looking back at the influenza pandemic at the conclusion and the year after the First World War. People started asking, what did orchestras and arts presenters do then? And what's fascinating is there are all these chamber orchestra-sized versions of different pieces. I remember doing the chamber orchestra version of Mahler's Das Lied von der Erde, and it never occurred to a lot of us before that some of these may have been, because they all seem to be constructed around, 1918 through 1923 or 24. Why were there all these tiny versions of these massive pieces? And it must have been a response to limits imposed on what you could do on the stage, or people with time in their hands that wanted to explore these pieces. Mm-hmm. And when you think about it, Rhapsody in Blue was written only about 4 years after the terrible pandemic of 100 years ago. And in some ways, I see some of the exuberance of the 20s, almost the mania of the 20s, as perhaps a response to a couple years of pent-up either restrictions or sorrows or anguish. And I've wondered, it seems that we are going to have to find a way for a while to live with COVID, but I do want to believe eventually a vaccine is going to land that is somehow going to positively transform this, and eventually we are going to be able to have crowds again. What almost exuberant mania is there going to be when people can go out and dance together and all these things without the necessary anxiety we would have about it now? And I think the creations we're going to get are going to hit kind of like Rhapsody in Blue hit. I mean, when has an orchestral piece ever hit the way that it did? And so I'm hearing it in a little different way than I have in the past. I'm trying to hear it in the context of what it came out of. And maybe this will give us a foretaste of, hopefully, the celebration we can eventually have.
The concert is this weekend. It is an all-American program. Aaron Copland, George Gershwin, and George Walker. Rhapsody in Blue, featuring the pianist Michael Chertock, who has joined us today on Toledo's Symphony Lab. Michael, we look forward to having you this weekend, and thanks so much for joining us today.
Thank you. It was a lot of fun. A great pleasure to meet all of you.
Likewise.
Bye-bye.
Oh, there's our special guest calling in. The return. We are. Whoops, wrong button.
Was it the wrong button though?
Return. Hey, he's playing for us. The return of our intrepid music director, Alain Trudel, who has been.
I love Sharp 11.
Yes, I know. I got that one just for you.
Of course he recognizes it.
I know that you like that particular fanfare. I have it. I can only play it when we have you on the phone with us. Yeah. So Alain Trudel, music director of the Toledo Symphony. Welcome back to Toledo's Symphony Lab. We haven't talked with you for a while.
I know. I've missed all of you so much.
Yeah, we missed you as well. You're in Canada, and, of course, with ongoing COVID-19 conditions, things have been quite a bit in flux, but it's great that we can connect to you this way. We were talking with Michael Chertock, who's playing the piano with the symphony this weekend in the George Gershwin program. I know you've had a little hand in helping to put together these programs. This is an all-American program. So I think it's perfect if you can offer a few words about the American program from your home there in Canada, if you don't mind.
Of course. Well, thank you for having me back. I'm excited about this great program that we're offering our public through the internet as well, with our Tapa streaming. So this is a program where we wanted to pay tribute, of course, to the great American composers. We have, of course, when you think about American music, you think Gershwin right away, and you think Copland. It's interesting because, Copland is like what we would say almost a household name. So some people might not know exactly, oh yeah, Copland, I think so. And then you play the da 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 sol mi si fa. Oh yeah. Fanfare.
Only because of the solfege.
Yes,
Yeah.
yes. I missed your solfege.
Oh, okay.
This is music for the soul, Fedge.
Oh, okay. Hi, Zach. Okay.
Yeah, just like normal.
Back in the saddle. Okay, so I completely forgot what you were talking about. Solfege?
Yeah.
We were talking about...
No. We're talking about Copland, and since with the symphony, we're so close to dance. We just did a really wonderful program of Gershwin, actually, with dancers, not so long ago. I thought that I wanted to make some kind of connection, not with dancers this time, but something that has to do with dance from Copland, and is Appalachian Spring is a wonderful, of course, piece of music. And I have to say, for me, I was programming it because I wanted to conduct it. Of course, I've done it. It's one of the first pieces I've done as a conductor, and I was really excited. Of course, COVID has decided otherwise.
Yeah.
But we'll have some wonderful, wonderful musician, wonderful maestro at Maestro Grounds that will be there to conduct it. But what we're doing that's very special with this arrangement is that often orchestras do the second version of it, which is kind of a remake, like Appalachian Spring to the Return of the Spring, But
I can't wait for Stravinsky after that, right? The Return of the Rite of Spring. No, okay.
So we're doing the original version, which is really what he intended first, and it's interesting because with the challenges we have, to put on stage, the size of the orchestra and the timings with due to COVID, this piece actually works perfect. But it's not there because of that. It's there because of the concept of the piece, the original version of it, which is somewhat of an orchestra that's different. It has piano. Usually you don't have that much piano in the orchestra. It doesn't have brass. It has a bunch of woodwind solos, and it has a chamber-like string feel to it. But at the same time, it represents, like most of Copland's music, the great openness of, like physically and mentally, of this country. And for me, it's always been a go-to work of music, especially that it has my all-time favorite, the Simple Gifts in it. I think if we live more by the words of that song, we'd have a wonderful future in front of us. There's the gift the gift of just being there, just being simple, and just being grateful. And that's something that's I like to put in any program I can.
Yeah, and I feel like there's a bit of a kinship there, not only with the Gershwin Rhapsody in Blue, but especially with George Walker's Lyric for Strings. Not a lot of folks know George Walker, African-American composer who passed away a few years ago, had a very long, illustrious career, the first African-American to get the Pulitzer Prize in music. And this Lyric for Strings is such a gorgeous piece. I think it fits right in there with the Appalachian Spring, especially in the version that you're doing, the reduced, was it 13 instruments? Yeah,
definitely. Well, I know, I knew of his music quite some time ago because he's one of the few composers who wrote trombone concerto at the time he did.
Nice.
It's actually quite a good piece.
For a trombone concerto.
I would say until there was a Christopher Rouse trombone concerto, that was pretty much that and the Creston were pretty much the go-to in the American repertoire. And he has, the title says it all, it's lyric. So it's a nice change of pace also because there's beautiful melodies in Copland, but Copland is about orchestration. It's more angular a little bit. Mind you, it's beautiful music, and the melodies are beautiful, but there's something that's complementary about this, and that also that creates a link into Copland, between Copland and Gershwin, with that work. And I think, when you're sitting in the audience, it's like if you're going to a restaurant, and which we cannot do right now here, but I know you can, so that's good. But you go into a restaurant, and it's important to have different parts to your meal that brings you, it's like a voyage. It's like the journey through the concert. And sometimes it's out of willingness, you will do something that's very abrupt, as a seizure between two pieces. But sometimes it's good to have, we have the Fanfare for the Common Man, that brings everybody in something we know, that we go into the same composer, Appalachian Spring, which is one of his, greatest opus. But then how we go from there to Gershwin's. We thought, I thought that it would be amazing to have this piece by Walker, who's not played enough. I mean, I was talking about that trombone piece, but often it's because, you know them because they wrote something for your instrument, something of that nature. But it's good to have, we have a platform here, and we have a mission to have those composers to be played. And it's beautiful music, super lyrical, super harmonically. People will find their way in it. It's not challenging in the way that, in the way that Schoenberg or late Schoenberg can be. As for the Gershwin, we're proposing something that is a little different than what people are used to these days. It's the 1926 version. So it's an earlier version. It's the version right after the premiere that they had with the big band of Paul Whiteman. And this is the version that mixes the saxophone with the orchestra. And there's a little extra orchestra writing in it. So I really hope everybody's going to enjoy it. And this is a program we took great love in making. And I hope everybody will enjoy it. So, and thanks for listening to our symphony.
Toledo Symphony Music Director Alain Trudel on the phone with us from Canada. And we can't wait to see you in person, Alain. I know it's going to happen one of these days, but in the meantime... In the meantime, this is a great way for us to keep in touch with you and to keep you in touch with the whole Toledo Symphony crowd. So we look forward to having you back next time here on Toledo Symphony Lab.
Thank you so much. I can't wait to join you.
The concert is this weekend, November 6th and 7th, an all-American program featuring Appalachian Spring by Aaron Copland, Rhapsody in Blue by George Gershwin with guest pianist Michael Chertock, and George Walker's Lyric for Strings. You can find more information at ToledoSymphony.com. This concert will be streaming after the fact. You can watch it live if you so choose, or you can rent it afterwards and watch it that way. The website for that is stream.artstoledo.com. This program is a production of WGTE Public Media in collaboration with our sponsor, the Toledo Symphony, with generous support from the Rita Barber Kern Foundation. You can download episodes of this program as a podcast by going to our website at wgte.org/lab. You can also subscribe to us through your podcast app of choice, including Apple and Google Podcasts. Remember, you can check out all the upcoming events at the Symphony by visiting their website, ToledoSymphony.com, and their various social media outlets on Facebook, Instagram, and Twitter. And once again, you can find all of the TSO's streaming concerts available on demand. That is at stream.artstoledo.com. My thanks to Zach Vassar and Vanessa Gardner for joining me in the studio, also to pianist Michael Chertock and conductor Alain Trudel, who joined us on the phone today. I'm Brad Cresswell. You've been listening to Toledo Symphony Lab from FM 91.